Hello, everybody. We are the Ohio University Energy Engineering Senior Design Team, and thank you for taking your time to come be here for this presentation. Our team was made up of 7 people, 2 of whom could not be here today, but for the rest of us, we've got Hashmi, who is here on the call. I'm Brian Johnson. We've got Faisal, Juma, who I think might be having some technical difficulties getting in, but hopefully he gets in here soon. And we've also got Mathad. So the relevant goals from the University of Washington that we were focusing on was 15% lower energy use intensity by 2025 and a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Our proposal is all rooftop solar that would help to, if not reduce the total consumption of a building, at least reduce the reliance of those buildings on energy from the grid. The buildings that we focused on were all buildings recommended by the UW Solar Student Organization. And as I said, we focused on 10 buildings across campus. To give a little background on our team, we started out early in the semester just watching a lot of those videos that were posted on the Canvas course. And to get an idea of what all of us were doing, we each designed solar using Aurora or Helioscope for one of the buildings that was recommended by the UW student organization. And somewhere around halfway through the semester, we had a meeting with our industry mentor who recommended that instead of working on one building and one financial model individually, that we split up into teams and have a few people focused on the financial models, a few people focused on the conceptual design, and a few people focused on the development plan. And due to the odd number of people in our team, we ended up splitting that up as 2 people on each of those 3 teams. And then I acted kind of as a project manager, making sure everybody had the information that they needed and making sure everybody was able to get information from Aurora, from the conceptual design team, into the financial model or to the development plan team. And
so for the technology selection, we set some of the components to be the same for most of the buildings or all of the buildings. For the panel, after looking up around 45 panels, we chose SPR X21 for 70 watts because it has a better efficiency and it has a good max voltage. We also considered the price and the long warranty that it has, which is around 20 years. For the inverter, we chose solar edge inverters, but this one differs for each building. So we choose one that is 25% less kilowatts than the size of the system. For the DC optimizer, we chose S2000, which is a solar edge 2. It is more compatible and efficient for our systems. For the tilt, we chose 35 for most of the buildings or around it, because this is the most optimal tilt angle for the district that we had. We also used the setback of 4 feet just for unexpected obstruction or extra room for the roof for easier access. Here is the map of our buildings. We chose 10 buildings, which has a positive savings. So we had originally 14 buildings, and 10 of them worked for us and had a good designs. So right to it, the Burke Museum, which is one of the best of our designs that we had, it gave us a good lifetime savings and a good annual production. And we have also, if you can go to the next slide, Brian. Here's the rest of our buildings. We have Population Health, Mercer B, Mercer D. Also here we have Dempsey Hall and the UW Police Department and the CSEE. For the UW Police Department, we were thinking about like proposing to the University of Washington to have some experiments for students to change the tilt. So we can also, for different seasons, just change the tilt for more production. And here's the rest also of our buildings, as you can see. For the expected operation, here's the system size for each of the building and the annual production. So when we calculated the annual production and we summed up all of them, we will be saving 493 metric tons of greenhouse gases, or basically the CO2.
All right, here I'll be discussing the financial aspects of our project. Let's start with some key financial terms. We have the internal rate of return, IRR, which is set at 7.5%. The metric helps us to predict the profitability of our solar project investment over time. Next, we have the net present value, NPV, which is currently set at 0. It indicates that the project net earning adjusted for the value of money for overtime are expected to break even considering our initial investment. Lastly, the investment tax credit, ITC. It is beneficial in supporting the economic of solar project. Our project eligible for 30%.
So next, I will talk about some of the inputs we used for our financial model. And this table on figure 13 shows a decent number of those inputs that we used, as well as the source that we got them from. So first of all, we had the overall construction cost for the system, which according to one of the resources provided on the Canvas module, our system fell between the 0.5 megawatt and 1 megawatt system size. So to have a conservative estimate on that, we went with the 0.5 megawatt pricing and broke that down into construction cost, interconnection cost, and the 10% developer margin, which that table doesn't exactly show it, but in the model itself, it's 0.164 to be exactly 10%. A lot of these other things were set in either the rules document or the Aurora output video on the Canvas course. The main other points on this that were not from things provided by the competition organizers are SRECs, which according to what we were able to find on the internet, Washington does not have any SRECs available. And the other important input for this, I reached out to Seattle City Light to get some historical rate data. And based on my calculation of that rate data, their average annual escalation would be about 5.4% for the university's rate structure. And next, here is a few of the key outputs from our design. This table shows the size, yield, aggregate project cost, and PPA price associated with our buildings. And these are all assuming the 7.5% IRR with a 0 net present value, just the break-even point, to get a good understanding of where each of these buildings is at. And as you can see from the PPA price, they all fall somewhere around the 11 cents per kilowatt hour range, which is fairly similar to what the university pays now at their peak use price. However, our escalation on our PPA price is much lower than Seattle City Light's escalation for that rate structure. So over the long term of this system, it will save the university a decent amount of money.
All right. Here we have one example of our building, which is Cedar E. Let's move to a visual representation. Here, let's focus on the substantial economic benefit of our solar project bring to our customers. This series of graphs will walk us through the estimated saving over 25 years, BBA. Let's starting with the top left. We have the estimated MPV of customer saving for a 25 years BBA period. As we can see here, the MPV is substantial and that indicating that over the long term customers will see significant saving. In the top right, we compare the BBA price with utility price, and this graph shows that the BBA price we offer remain constantly lower than the utility price over 25 years period. And this indicates that our customer will benefit from a stable and affordable energy cost compared to the utility price. In the middle graph, we looking at the comparison between utility and solar energy usage in kilowatt hour. As we can see that the amount of energy brought from utility doesn't change that much and showing that our solar setup is doing a good job. And the graph in the bottom show how much customer will save each year.
Mafan, I think you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry. So in our development plan, we focused on authority having jurisdiction. As you can see in the map, University of Washington located in University District, and there's 4 main departments that sit as authority having jurisdiction, which are City of Seattle Department, Construction and Inspection. That's responsible for granting building permit and electrical permit and use land permit. Secondly, Seattle City Light, which is granted to give the code or give the permit to interconnect to the distributed energy resource. And third one is the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries, and they make sure the workers are safe. And finally, University of Washington Facilities and Administration Service, they're focusing on long-term goals. And here show the steps of how to interconnect our system to the distributed energy source. So here it's several steps. So we got two type of application. One to those for system that up to 100 kilowatt, and the other application is 2 to 4, which we're going to use for our system. That's for array up to over than 100 kilowatt. And once we get the permission from the Seattle City Light, now we need to get the permits from the other department that I mentioned earlier in the previous step. And then the Seattle City Light will send someone to check our system if they meet the requirements. So if yes, we are allowed to interconnect with the DER. If not, we need to check our system again and meet the requirements. And here is the zoning. As you can see, City of Seattle, located in major institutions, which they following the chapter 23.69, and here's some codes that we need to follow for joining stuff.
So going to the construction timeline, as you can see, we'll need about 9 months to complete the construction. The first 2 months will be an overall assessment and design to evaluate solar potential and roof integrity and shading issues. Also, at the same time, obtaining approval from the stakeholders. The next 2 months will be permitting and purchasing all the items needed. And the next 2 months will be installing and inspection. Also, we'll need maybe conducting an internal inspection and testing, and an external inspection needed maybe from the city. And moving to the next month, we'll be commissioning and final approval, finalizing any remaining construction and receive a final approval from the city.
Unfortunately, you are at time, so I'm going to cut you
Okay.
off there.